I once watched this movie or YouTube video about like the 80s or 90s and queer culture in New York City. I think it was like Paris is Falling or Paris is Burning. It was about ball culture and the way that various people interacted with it. But what I most want to touch on now is that these people were often socially outcasted. The social reception to LGBTQ individuals at this time was really poor. These people were often either outcasted from their families or they outcasted themselves in order to spare themselves the shame and social turbulence, which I've already addressed. Do I think this is right? That's not the topic for right now. But what I'm getting at is these chosen families ended up plurring up into various houses, and these houses often had reputation and this kind of systemic parasociality as well. It was known that certain houses had very good quality ball dancers or very high quality like aesthetic people, right? Or very qualified XYZ. These houses had reputation, and these collectives, these plurs, were able to build into this idea of systemic parasociality. These houses are also system plurs, not necessarily organized around any one individual, but instead around this idea or concept or virtual object rather than any material one. Even adopted or half family members are still treated as part of a family, even if not by blood. These houses had social standing and reputations, and individual sings would often crave admission into one for both personal and collective development and protection. So there's benefits to both the sing and the plur to kind of plur up. Another example building on these ideas, one maybe more common with the cisheads to my audience, is this idea of marriage. A chosen family, which is your spouse, integrates into the blood family, which is your biological one, and now you two have integrated your two plur structures for a stronger one. Or you have left behind singhood, both of you to be individual sings, right? Because families are kind of a producer of sings in modern America. Two sings would join together to a plur that's still a chosen family, and later biological family if you have children. I read an article the other day detailing the main benefit of marriage, which is a strengthening of this web of connections, the density of the plur. That's actually not what it was about. It was called How to Foster Coherence in Co-Created Spaces, but that was my takeaway. Was plur and sing dynamics. I could give other examples such as the four houses from Harry Potter, the Game of Thrones families, countries, dynasties, realities. The list could go on, but I hope you got the point. Systemic parasociality is what creates media ecosystems, and these media ecosystems are things that people often coexist inside of, especially with the integration of the T into this information system, like the internet, radio, TV, television, etc. Telegrams. Pre-technical examples of the systemic parasociality concept could be examples of like regal families or of the town crier who preaches the word of the king, or any other formation of functional government that pushed out messaging of any kind, which is all of them, because pushing out messaging is a way to enforce your power without violence. You know, language is often the first step towards the end destination of violence. It doesn't always get there, but in general, if a dominant power is using language, you can assume that there is the implication that violence is on the back end. Something I've learned growing up in America is that the state has the monopoly on violence. That's the idea. The reality is they don't actually hold a monopoly on violence. They want people to feel like they do, and they want people to act like they do. But in practicality, plur structures of all kind are always vying for power where they can. The T allowed for individuals all over the world to now connect and build their own plurs everywhere. We often hear anecdotes about village idiots or village crazies from before who can now congregate and create entire plur structures to create entire ecosystems or communities. Many have written at length about this phenomenon where these people who previously would be isolated, maybe not socialized very much locally, maybe ostracized, maybe pushed out of their local towns. Maybe they were forced into submission of these local plur socialization dynamics. They're now able to encourage and discourage each other to build new social rules and mechanisms to create their own communities in the virtual substrate. They create their own communities in the substrate of the T in ways that they couldn't before. Incels are another example of this that are often lumped in here when people are doing research of this online. Sometimes it is a case of the village crazies getting together and reminiscing together on their shared hallucinations or not shared hallucinations that they happen to reminisce over together. Other times though, it's the people of the village who were often chastised for their curiosity or were individually held back due to a lack of collective knowledge. Now these people are able to form social networks and connections that enable them to flourish both individually and collectively. The same kinds of people that 300-400 years ago may have studied all of the local beetles in an area are now able to connect and create